These have really been unprecedented times for funeral directors. In particular, one of the things that's really obvious is the amount of regulation that's all of a sudden coming your way. And this has all been on top of a time where you've been really stretched because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we've just got through and just starting to get to grips with now the CMA market investigation order, which is imposed on you price transparency requirements. A number of you will be affected by the new changes to funeral plan regulation, with funeral plans coming under the auspices of the Financial Conduct Authority. And now, lo and behold, we've got the David Fuller inquiry, which is going to be looking into not merely the mortuary practices that take place in the hospital, but also in non-hospital settings, including funeral directors. And that may well bring new regulatory requirements. So there's an awful lot that's going on here. And I do wonder at times how on earth funeral directors who are not members of the trade body manage to keep it up with it all. It's certainly a full-time job as far as we're concerned, and we're there to support you, to make sure that you're aware of all the changes that are coming and all the things that you really need to take into account when dealing with all these new regulations which are coming into place. So, where are we on regulation? Well, the CMA market order came into effect last September. We've spent a lot of time informing members what those requirements are. We've undertaken audits, we've contacted members, informing them where we think they're not compliant. And we're now, I think, in a much better place because of this. It's quite clear the vast majority of funeral directors are now complying with the order, but we are really worried about those few funeral directors who are still holding out. Now, we know that for many who are not fully compliant, they've simply misunderstood the order, and we're there to help them. We've been contacting funeral directors, making sure that they're aware of where we think they're not complying, and then just double checking that what they have done is now compliant. So that's an ongoing process, and that will continue for a number of months yet. The ones we're really worried about are those who have simply done nothing, those that are really holding out against complying with the order. And we are going to do something about that. We've been in discussions with the CMA, and clearly their approach at the moment is similar to NAFD's in that it is about encouraging, educating and so on. But that is going to change, and we now really think it is time for the CMA to actually take a much tougher stance and to actually start pursuing those members or other funeral directors who are not complying with the order. We'll be following that. We want to keep our approach in step as much as possible with the CMA itself. But the time has come, I think now, for a tougher stance to be taken, because it's not fair. A lot of you have put a lot of effort into making sure you're compliant, and it's not fair if your competitors have done nothing. So where are we then on funeral plan regulation? Well, I think, as you know, all funeral plan providers must be authorised by the 29th of July in order to be able to legally sell funeral plans after that date. And a number of firms are going through the authorisation process currently. It's important that you know as funeral directors what you need to do. The best thing you can do is get in touch with your funeral plan provider and to see what the requirements they are going to make of you, because most of you, I think, will probably be selling funeral plans as appointed representatives, and therefore you're selling them on behalf of the funeral plan provider. And it's the funeral plan provider's responsibility to make sure that you're aware of what you need to do in order to be able to legally sell funeral plans after the 29th of July. If you're unsure about any of this, we held a webinar recently, which is available on our website, where we got 4 funeral plan providers who were really excellent, I have to say, and gave really good advice as to the various options that are available to you as funeral directors. So do make sure you have a look at that. The The other thing that you may get inquiries from your customers about this. And again, I think it's important to explain to them the authorisation process which is currently going on, and to reassure them we don't want a big panic about this. There's been quite a lot of headlines around some funeral plan providers that are not seeking authorisation, and we are worried. We are worried about what may happen to consumers in that case. But the thing to do is check with your funeral plan provider to see what they're doing regarding authorisation, and make sure that that message is then passed on to your customers. If you know that they're seeking authorisation, you can tell them that's the case. You can direct them to the FCA website, where there's a list of all those who are seeking authorisation and what the current status is. But for most customers who have a funeral plan, there should be no real reason to panic. The David Fuller inquiry really represents a new challenge for us with regard to regulation. Whilst much of that inquiry will be focused on hospital settings, mortuary practices within hospitals, the terms of reference which have now been published quite clearly outline the fact that non-hospital settings will also be considered within scope, and that includes funeral director premises. So we will be giving evidence to that inquiry, and one of the things we will be highlighting is how NAFD members have been subject to inspection for quite a number of years now. And that really should give reassurance to the public that standards are high within NAFD members' mortuaries. Now, that's not the case everywhere, but it really emphasises the importance of that work that we've done in inspections over a number of years. Now, of course, inspections are all transitioning over to the Independent Funeral Standards Organisation. And actually, that should provide greater reassurance to the public, because it's got that independence from the profession. The IFSO has been set up as a public interest body, which has the public interest at the heart of everything it does. So it should give greater reassurance to the public. It's not without risk. There are plans afoot to move to a more risk-based approach, and we support that. It makes sense to consider risk when conducting inspections. And I think in many ways there is probably quite a lot that can be done at a distance. But the real test of things is having those boots on the ground, going into funeral homes, seeing what's actually happening in practice. And we would expect that to continue under IFSO's new risk-based approach. I think the other thing I would say is that care of the deceased this is not merely all about inspections. It's also been at the heart of our education programme. And some of the new things we're doing in education are really emphasising that. For example, our new funeral service operatives course, which was launched last year. The other thing I would highlight, of course, is the piloting that we're going to be doing this year of the Funeral Learning Hub. Again, putting CPD at the heart of what you do, making sure that everybody's up to date and aware of what the current standards are. So we'll be feeding back all this to the Fuller inquiry. Again, at our conference in May, the care of the deceased is very much a key feature of our education programme on the Saturday. We've got some excellent speakers lined up, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all at that conference on the 6th to the 8th of May later this year.